Hello and welcome to part 1 of 6 Degrees of Ukraine. Zelenskyy, part 1, from comedian to commander. Welcome to 6 Degrees of Ukraine, where we connect the dots, trace the decisions, and uncover the stories shaping modern geopolitics. Today we begin with Volodymyr Zelenskyy, a man who went from making jokes on TV to leading his country through war. His story isn't just about Ukraine, it's a window into how leadership, perception, and survival collide on the global stage. The unlikeliest president. Zelenskyy wasn't a career politician, far from it. Most Ukrainians knew him as a comedian, the star of Servant of the People, a TV show where he played a humble teacher accidentally becoming president. In 2019, life copied art. Zelenskyy ran for president and won by a landslide. His actual party was even named after the show. It was part populist wave, part protest vote, and part national exhaustion with corruption. Zelenskyy was the clean slate. Big promises, harsh realities. He campaigned on fighting corruption, making peace with Russia, and sweeping away Ukraine's old political class. The reality check hit fast. Moscow didn't want peace, they wanted control. Ukraine's oligarchs didn't just disappear, and Zelenskyy's lack of political experience left him vulnerable to both internal critics and external manipulation. The comedian turned president found himself drowning in complexity. By 2021, his approval had plunged, and many wondered if his presidency would be a one-term experiment. February 2022, everything changes. Then came February 24th, 2022, the day Russia launched its full-scale invasion. Whatever doubts existed about Zelenskyy evaporated overnight when he stood in the streets of Kiev with his team, recording that now iconic selfie video declaring, "I am here, we are here." Zelenskyy wasn't acting, he was leading. That single moment redefined him. Suddenly, the comedian became a symbol, the face of Ukrainian resistance. The Churchill comparison, earned or overplayed. Western media immediately crowned him Ukraine's Churchill. The man who had once joked his way into power was now being cast as a wartime icon. But here's the twist. Zelenskyy never expected to play that role. As late as February 2022, he downplayed the risk of full invasion. His own military was caught off guard. Some praise his bravery for staying in Kiev. Others say his lack of preparation left Ukraine scrambling in those crucial first days. Master of the message. What Zelenskyy lacked in military foresight, he made up for in messaging, speeches to Congress, emotional appeals to global summits, viral video addresses. Zelenskyy understood optics better than most career politicians ever could. He didn't just ask for weapons, he framed every request as a moral test for the West. That worked, for a while. The Istanbul talks, what could have been. In the war's early weeks, Ukraine and Russia actually talked, in Istanbul, of all places. Ukraine floated the idea of neutrality, no NATO, in exchange for ironclad security guarantees. It was a painful compromise, but it could have saved countless lives. Then came Bucha, where Russian troops left behind mass graves and executed civilians. After that, talks collapsed. Zelenskyy hardened. Victory, not compromise, became his new script. Churchill 2.0 was locked in. From reluctant leader to relentless negotiator, Zelenskyy evolved. The humble outsider vanished. In his place stood a wartime president, blunt with allies, scathing towards critics, and relentless in demands for weapons and aid. Diplomacy gave way to pressure tactics. Public shaming became part of his foreign policy toolbox that won sympathy but also resentment, especially in Washington and Berlin. Power consolidated. Inside Ukraine, martial law handed Zelenskyy near total power. Parliament became secondary. Elections were postponed indefinitely. Opposition figures were sidelined or sanctioned. Zelenskyy said it was necessary to survive the war. His critics said it was a dangerous habit that could outlast the war itself. The line between necessary authority and creeping authoritarianism got blurry. The first turning point, late 2023. By late 2023, cracks began to show. The much-hyped counter-offensive stalled. Casualties mounted. Ukraine's army ran low on both men and morale. Western support softened. Zelensky's speeches, once greeted with standing ovations, started landing with polite applause and quiet frustration. The Churchill image no longer fit so neatly. Zelenskyy wasn't leading a plucky underdog toward inevitable victory. He was managing a long, grinding war with no clear end. The Trump factor. Then came Trump. Back in the White House, after the 2024 election, Trump made no secret of his disdain for Zelenskyy or his skepticism about endless aid to Ukraine. Where Biden embraced the Churchill narrative, Trump rewrote it. Suddenly, Zelenskyy was cast as a corrupt opportunist, a failed business deal in Trump's own words. The era of automatic Western backing ended, and Zelenskyy found himself playing defense, not just against Russia, but against his most important ally. Where we leave off, the crossroads. And that's where we leave part one. Zelenskyy stands at a crossroads. His future tied not just to the war, but to shifting politics in Washington, Brussels, and beyond. Can he rewrite his role once again? Can he shift from wartime icon to pragmatic negotiator? Or has the war, and the persona created, trapped him in a role he can't escape? In part two, we'll dive into Zelenskyy's evolving relationship with the West, and what happens when your biggest supporter turns out to be your biggest skeptic. 6 degrees of Ukraine, because no story stands alone.